There we go. All right, everybody. Good morning and welcome to our January session for Centralina Learns, which is building age-friendly communities. We're excited to have you here today. All right, so you'll notice we are in the Zoom webinar mode. So that means that you're automatically muted. You're not able to see each other, but you can definitely see our speakers and our hosts. And if you have any questions, just go ahead and throw those in the chat box or in the Q&A. Today's session is being recorded, so it'll be posted later if you want to share with your friends or watch it again. And then there is a certificate of attendance, but also if you're here for AICP credits, I think Katie's going to talk a little bit about that as well.
All right, and good morning, everyone. I'm Katie Kutcher. I'm part of the team here at the Centralina Regional Council, and I'm part of the Area Agency on Aging Department. And as Caitlin said, we're excited to be able to offer AICP credits for the Centralina Learn session today. We know that this number is very important for those of you who are going to be seeking those CEUs. And so we've got the number on the screen here for you to go ahead and record. We will also be making it available at the end of the session as well. So just wanted to make this available for you all for your records. And then let's see here. We're gonna, as we get ready to roll into our introductions, really excited to have you all here to talk about age-friendly communities today. And so we know that we're all aging, right? So aging, it's a natural process. It starts at birth, it ends at death. And at the Area Agency on Aging, we really want to raise awareness about aging issues and aging considerations, and really help to remind everyone that this is something that impacts everyone. So it impacts us personally, it impacts us because of our families, friends, neighbors, but certainly it has huge implications for our communities. And so we know that the state of North Carolina is committed to building an age-friendly state. And that was really documented back in May of 2023 when Governor Roy Cooper signed an executive order really outlining some of the goals and really intentions of the state of North Carolina to pursue some age-friendly planning on behalf of the state. And that started a flurry of activity, a flurry of initiatives, including the development of something called a multi-sector plan for aging. And so in North Carolina, that's called All Ages, All Stages. And we're going to pop some of these resources in the chat box for you all as references. And so through the All Ages, All Stages study, it really highlighted a lot of the considerations for older adults across North Carolina, as well as some of the top unmet needs, as well as really it laid out some recommendations as a state for us to move forward with some age-friendly planning initiatives to make sure that this state is livable for people of all ages. And so, again, we know the state is involved with a lot of activities, but there's so many opportunities also at the regional and the local level for us to really engage in age-friendly community planning. You know, what can we do to make sure our communities are inclusive? What can we make sure that we have supportive infrastructures for people to age in place? And so very excited to have some experts with us here today to share information with us, including Rebecca Gilbert from AARP. And AARP just has a wealth of resources and information related to age-friendly communities, and also an opportunity for communities to engage in a process to really intentionally move forward with age-friendly planning. So we'll hear some about that. And then also really excited to have Christine Arnaud from the Age-Friendly Mecklenburg, and excited that they'll be able to really share the experience from a local community who has been engaged in this work. So, you know, has the real stories of how it works, what doesn't work. So for any of you representing your communities who might be interested in getting involved, the purpose of this is to really give you a roadmap of resources to do that. Also opportunities to connect to some best practices that have already been established. So thank you, Rebecca and Christine, for being here with us today. And we'll go ahead and turn things over to you to get started, Rebecca.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, everyone. Again, my name is Rebecca Gilbert. I'm the Associate State Director of Advocacy and Outreach for AARP North Carolina. AARP is a national nonprofit, but we have offices in 50 states plus Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and Washington, D.C. And I specifically am based in the Charlotte area, making sure that our livability work remains very localized, and we have programs and we have volunteers on the ground making sure that we can make Mecklenburg County and all of North Carolina as age-friendly as possible. So today Christine and I are going to talk about what livable communities are, what the 8 domains of livability are, and she's going to jump into the details of age-friendly Mecklenburg, and then we'll talk about some of our environmental and transportation initiatives. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about AARP first, because not going to lie, a lot of people think of AARP as a membership card, and we're a lot more than that. So while we do have the membership side of things, I work for our nonprofit. And AARP is actually the nation's largest nonprofit. We're also nonpartisan and dedicated to really empowering older adults to choose how they live as they age. So we provide you with the tools, we provide you with the resources and the information to make decisions so you can live your best lives. We've been around for over 60 years, and in those 60 years, we've been creating positive social change. As I mentioned, we have 53 state offices, the 50 states plus those territories, and we have over 38 million members across the nation. And our 3 entities are our nonprofit that I work for, our foundation, which raises money for our nonprofit, and AARP Services, which is where the membership and all those deals lie. So our mission as AARP is, again, to empower people to choose how they live as they age by equipping them with all of the resources and information they need. And our ideal world is a society where everyone lives with dignity and purposes and is able to fulfill their goals and dreams. We act as everyday innovators in aging, providing folks with tools such as age-friendly communities and making sure our older adults are digitally savvy and make sure that we provide the latest and greatest information. And the goal is for us to show up as a wise friend in your life and fierce defender on your behalf. And what that means is that AARP is kind of your go-to resource for all information regarding aging. And we advocate for older adults on issues that matter to them, such as affordable health care, affordable housing, and making sure that, prescription drugs are able to be afforded and you're able to save for retirement. So AARP, similar to Centralina, operates in regions, which again allows us to be really localized with our efforts, in particular our livability efforts that we're going to talk about more in a second. So this is just a map of everywhere we represent. Our regions, again, are very similar to the AAAs. I personally represent the 13 counties around Mecklenburg, which you can see in this map. So now that we know what AARP is, we're gonna focus on one of our really priority issues, which is making sure our communities across the country are livable. We have a few resources that allow you to both evaluate how livable your community is, and also we empower nonprofits to make their livable dreams a reality through programs. And also we have age-friendly communities, which Mecklenburg obviously is one of those, and we'll get into that more in a second. Our livability index, you can access by going to aarp.org/livable, and you can actually put in your address, your city, your town, and based on a variety of calculations, you can determine how livable your community is. It actually calculates a livability score. In addition, we have age-friendly communities all across the country, of which Mecklenburg is one. And basically what that means, so we'll get more into the details, but age-friendly communities commit to plan and put that plan into action to make sure that they carry out our 8 domains of livability, which we'll show you in a minute, and really make sure that their community is fit for older adults as they age. In addition, I wanted to say this because the application process just opened, we have something called a Community Challenge Grant. It's a super cool grant that is awarded to nonprofit organizations across the country. Nonprofits can apply by going to that aarp.org/livable site. And we've awarded millions of dollars, over 500 community challenge grants over the years. And the goal is for nonprofits to carry out immediate projects that are smaller scale. And the goal for that is to really have a lot of impact on the ground. So, I mean, I can talk forever about some of the really cool community challenge grants that we've carried out. One in particular I'm just going to talk about in Mecklenburg County is we worked with a nonprofit a year or so ago called Sustain Charlotte, and they actually built an online interactive age-friendly map where they mapped out all of the greenway and trail and walkway systems in the Charlotte area and designated the different livability features. So, as referenced in our little intro, why would a community want to become age-friendly? It's because North Carolina, in addition to the whole country, is getting older. So as you can see, this is a map of the US in 2015 and then 2030. And as you can see, it shows the population of Americans older than 65. In 2015, if you're looking at North Carolina, we're kind of middle of the road. It was 12.5% to 15% of people were over 65. When you jump to 2030, that number goes up to almost 20%. So continuing at this rate, there are actually going to be more adults that are over 50 than under 18. So, and that's going to be, you know, in just a couple of decades. So it's really important, as we're all getting older and getting older rapidly, it's really important for us to make sure our communities are fit for us as we age. The goal is for folks to be able to stay where they are if they choose. So 8 in 10 people over 45 expect to stay in the same house after they retire. So one of the things that we do in making our communities age-friendly is we make it so it's possible for people to do that. You know, the goal here is we want to empower older adults to choose how they live as they age, but also we want to empower them to make their own decisions. And most people want to stay in their homes as they get older and as they retire. So we want to make sure that their community is best served for them to do that. So this is that livability index that I mentioned just a couple of slides before. You can put in your address, you can put in your city, and you can actually figure out what that score is based on a variety of calculated factors. So Mecklenburg County is one of many, many age-friendly communities. There are 938 age-friendly members. So that's age-friendly communities, whether they're cities, towns, municipalities, all across the United States. And you can see that we have got a lot in the Carolinas. We've got 64 in North Carolina, 19 in South Carolina, 7 in Virginia. And then over the past 10 or so years, we've given out over 1,700 of those community challenge grants, which are the small scale nonprofit grants for projects that make communities more livable. So I keep talking about this age-friendly program. What is it like? How does it work? This little graphic is really handy. It talks about what the age-friendly program process is. So when a community joins the Age-Friendly Network, they commit to assess their community's age-friendliness, and also commit to a cycle of continuous improvement, which can contain making sure older residents are included in all stages of the age-friendly process, conduct a community needs assessment, which I know Christine has done with our research team and is very informative. They develop an action and evaluation plan based on those results. They implement the plan and work towards its goals to make their community age-friendly. They assess it, they share solutions, and do it again. So this makes sure that they take in the input of the community at large and use that to inform their efforts in making the community age-friendly. As you can see through the age-friendly program process in this little arrow diagram, it's not immediate change overnight. It takes a while for a community to become age-friendly because there's so many factors that come into play. And so often it's a multi-year process where, after the community needs assessment is conducted, an action plan is developed and then it's implemented, and then it's evaluated, it's reported on, and assessments are continually done. So this isn't kind of a 1 year and boom, your community is age-friendly, it's met all of its needs, great, good job. This is something that's constantly evolving, especially as our communities evolve. I'm based in Charlotte, North Carolina, right in Mecklenburg County, and I see since I moved here in 2019, the community has changed rapidly. Not only has, my neighborhood itself gotten older, but there have been more walkways and more greenways and more light rail stops and more bus stops. And this kind of stuff happens gradually over time, and you don't realize that it all happens all at once. It's a gradual process. Housing's being built every day, but you kind of look back 5 years later and see the great impact of the work. So it takes a while, it takes some patience, and there are a lot of local government and nonprofit entities that work together to make it happen. So these are some of the communities in North Carolina that are already part of the age-friendly network. And here it says when they joined. Mecklenburg County joined in 2016. Good job, guys. And as you can see, there are counties, cities, and towns that are part of the age-friendly network. And what's really nice about it is not only can age-friendly communities talk with each other within their state, but it's a national group. It's a national partnership, and other cities and towns and counties from across the nation can communicate with each other and share best practices. So there are over 3 million individuals in all these counties, cities, and towns combined that are impacted by the great age-friendly community work. So I keep talking about the 8 domains of livability, which is just how we break down what livability is, because it sounds like a very nice general term. Great, we'd like to make our community livable. Sounds awesome. What does that mean? So there are 8 domains that we kind of break it into to make it a little more digestible, and also to allow our age-friendly communities to really hone in on the aspects that are most important to their individual areas. So those 8 domains are making sure there are outdoor spaces and buildings. So in Mecklenburg County specifically, we have a wide array of parks and gathering spaces. Transportation is a really big one, making sure there's accessible and affordable transportation, whether it be bus stops or public transportation like a train or a light rail, and making sure they're accessible to people of all ages. Affordable housing, another huge one, especially as a community grows. Social participation, which is making sure there are ways for people of all ages to communicate with each other and gather. That was something that was really important, as has shown to be important since and after the COVID-19 pandemic. We've seen how important social participation really is as we get older. Respect and social inclusion is so important when a community is growing and there are people of all ages in it. Allowing for work and civic engagement, making sure there are opportunities for volunteering, opportunities for getting involved with the community, and also employment. Communication and information ensures that the community itself there are many ways to share information across various channels and different groups. And ensuring that your community is livable because there is access to health services and community supports where needed. And as you can see, we kind of break those 8 domains into 2 spaces: our built environment, which is like transportation, housing, things like that, and the social environment, which is communication, civic engagement. So those 2 environments work together to make a community more livable. And one that is kind of a soapbox issue for me because it's so pertinent in Charlotte is the domain of transportation. So transportation is a way to connect us and also a way to block us from essential services such as health. Our transportation can give us access to nutritious foods, safe housing in neighborhoods, job opportunities, but it can also block us from various things. It can create lack of language and literacy skills, polluted air and water, and even racism, discrimination, and violence. So there are a lot of little things that, when you're working in the livability space, that you'll recognize as things that can impede our transportation access at all ages, that we really want to make sure we address as we're making our community more livable. A couple in particular is maybe safety lighting for walking at night is impeded by a big tree. Maybe the sidewalk is uneven, which can be a tripping hazard for older adults who may have some balance issues. Also, if there are people that are aging who have visibility issues or maybe can't see very well at night, if a crosswalk is not entirely visible to them, it can create a hazard. And there are a lot of resources. These are just a couple of them that you guys can access for more information about our AARP Livability Initiative and the AARP Age-Friendly Network. There are, lessons and best practices as the community kind of taps into that age-friendly network. A lot of different fact sheets which show numbers of the impact of your community becoming more livable. We have that livability index I mentioned, which calculates how livable your community is on a number of scales. And if you're conducting interviews in the community about how livable your community is, we also have a document that kind of aids in that process as you're doing your research. And now I'm going to kick it over to Christine, who's going to talk about Age-Friendly Mecklenburg, which is one of those 938 age-friendly communities and dozens of communities in North Carolina. And I just want to humble brag about her for a little bit. She has done a really great way of spearheading this community, but also creating a really great intersectionality of partners between nonprofits, for-profits, private sector, public sector, local and state government. And in order to really make lasting change, it's so important to get those people talking together, which can be hard, but really reaps really big rewards. It's a great job.
Okay, perfect. So again, thank you, Rebecca, for the transition. And again, my name is Christine Arno. So for context, with this community, as Rebecca mentioned, our age-friendly efforts are housed within Mecklenburg County, within our Department of Social Services. So Unique to our county, we have a services for adults division, standard services that are provided to any resident 60 and older. And so that is where our age-friendly Mecklenburg initiative is co-housed. And as you heard from Rebecca, this is nothing new. This framework is our take. So everything I touch on is our iteration of implementation. But I do want to share that across the state, there are many different forms and methods to implementation. And one benefit of that is that it can be unique to your community. So again, the way that we fostered our approach is very unique to Mecklenburg County, as the county houses 7 municipalities, as you see on the screen. So we are working with the city of Charlotte and then the towns of Cornelius, Davidson, Huntersville, Matthews, Mint Hill, and Pineville, and newly with Stallings, as well as the surrounding region. So the initiatives and the efforts I'm going to touch on are specifically in those parameters. But again, it looks a little different depending on what part of the state you're in, as well as what part of the county that you're in. Okay. So for context, I always feel like a good place to start is to best understand the county as a whole. Okay, so here's our history on this slide for context with our community, the population at hand. So we have over 1 million residents in Mecklenburg County, 18% of which are 60 and older. So we're looking nearly 200,000 residents when we think about our age-friendly community, right? And despite a median age of 35 years old, we think a lot of economic development, we think middle-aged families, but we do know, as Rebecca mentioned, that older adults will soon surpass, our residents 0 to 18. And so what are we doing to address those unique needs in alignment with that 8 domains of livability format and framework? Okay, so with our history, as Rebecca mentioned, we initiated this process in 2016. And so that is, any municipality can kind of take that first step. In my opinion, any time is the right time. Looking at your population data is a great, foundational piece to understanding, should we take this step? But it's never too soon. As Rebecca mentioned, as Katie mentioned, our state is rapidly aging. And so any municipality, whether that's the county, the city, the town, if it's housed in a nonprofit, there's a unique approach no matter where you are. So I think starting with that population data and initiating that process. So from 2016 to 2017, we facilitated our 60+ gap analysis. So right off the bat, we started to assemble community partners of interest, and we hosted that gap analysis in partnership with the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. So we had their assistance to build that survey tool in partnership with AARP as well. And we wanted to get the community's input, right? Where are the gaps and challenges? We don't want to make that misstep of assuming what the community needs. We wanted to truly see that and reflect that in our work. Okay, and so as everyone knows, with COVID-19 and the pandemic, 2019 and 2020, we lost a little bit of momentum and we saw new challenges and obstacles emerge, but we were still able to craft that initial age-friendly action plan and obtain additional input from AARP and county residents. So again, we heard what the gaps were, we crafted that plan, and then we put it back into the community. Does this make sense? Are these true challenges? And from there in 2021, we received formal designation as an age-friendly community. And again, at the county level, so we submitted that action plan and followed that process that Rebecca highlighted in the previous slides. And from there, we kind of hit the ground running. So in 2022, we implemented an age-friendly communications plan, and the county did designate 1 full-time position to assist with those efforts. So I like to highlight that. That is not necessarily a required step, right? But it did assist with some of that collaboration, facilitation, and evaluating our progress. So I think that's something definitely worth noting. In 2023, we launched many education programs and strategic awareness campaigns. So a big piece of Mecklenburg County is knowing what's out there, right? As we mentioned, it's a large county, many residents. So being really intentional about promoting both this initiative, but also building our awareness of available services. So we took steps to create that brand awareness, as you saw on the first slide. So we have a logo, getting out in the community, whether in person or digitally. So working with social media platforms, print, radio, television, billboards, right, newspaper, really being creative about that. And then shifting into 2024, launching some more unique initiatives that we've heard. So as we were out in the community as a network, what are we looking for? What is the community looking for? And I will touch a little bit on those initiatives. We'll stay primarily focused in transportation and the built environment, but a few to mention, and then happy to, share some context as well based on interest. Okay, so as Rebecca mentioned, a big piece of this work at any level, in my opinion, but specifically here is our community partnerships. So, building an age-friendly community is, again, not overnight, but it's not singular as well. So over the course of, the 5 years with our action plan, and then starting into this next series or next 5 years, we've truly built a network of community partners, whether that is nonprofit entities, higher education, our health systems here, faith-based organizations, resources at the state level, so on and so forth. So this is kind of a screenshot of those. So our network is compiled and reflects more than 50 organizations across those 8 domains. And so we have someone from every space. And the general rule is that it's an open door policy. So if someone is interested about doing the work, they're committed to serving, anyone aging, but specifically older adults and caregivers. They are welcome into the space, and we facilitate that collaboration on an ongoing basis. And as I mentioned here, community partnerships is one of our largest pillars of facilitation. So I always like to kind of give the context. We have 3 big pillars. So I would say community partnerships and engagement. Our advocacy piece, so having this conversation on platforms, right? Kudos to Centralina for showcasing this in this framework, right? Getting this out to other sectors. And then the third being the implementation of the age-friendly plan. So that's where those unique initiatives come to play. And so those really guide our efforts in terms of keeping older adults informed, active, engaged, and supported, which are our 4 primary objectives. Okay, so here we have Domain 1, outdoor spaces and building initiatives. So again, as I mentioned, the action plan, when we drafted our initial action plan, that was prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, and so we, along with those 8 domains of livability, crafted these unique recommendations from that community input, from provider input and so forth. So we have about 40 recommendations. So these are the ones purely housed within Domain 1. And as you can see here, they take outdoor spaces and buildings and translate into walkability of older adults, our built environment, as Rebecca touched on, so greenways and trails, as well as accessibility to those, connecting older adults. So what are their communities and their neighborhoods looking like? Taking it a step further with our facilities. So we always think about ADA compliance, but how can we take it one step further? Okay, so when we're looking at building structure, when we're looking at modifications, building new buildings, are we sitting in those spaces and in those rooms to advocate for maybe one enhanced version? And then identifying and cultivating those facilities, again, for that walkability piece. So I will touch on here, our primary partners are Mecklenburg County Park and Recreation, so getting people into those recreation centers. Are they available in each community? Are they in a close proximity, and are people aware? Because for us, senior centers are often at low or no cost to older adults, a certain level of programming. And so we want to make sure people are aware of that. Age Friendly Mecklenburg also engages with our Senior Citizens Advisory Council. So that group meets quarterly, and from there we can hear those trends often faced in safety around greenways and built environment. So can we enhance the lighting there? Can we work with public information for emergency planning if I'm on the greenways? We even kind of had the conversation of walking groups, right, which is active and engaged right now. And how do we allow older adults to feel the most comfortable and most willing to utilize those spaces, both whether they're completely able and mobile or, use assistive devices? Bringing those lenses to those conversation has really been a big piece of where we're active and engaged in this space, as well as just supporting our towns in their development and planning. So age-friendly being a resource at the county level. How can we support efforts? We've supported the town of Huntersville with letters of support in terms of obtaining planning, funding and allocation, giving that guidance from AARP, and working with precedents in neighboring counties too. So thinking about the built environment, both for those who walk in metropolitan Charlotte, those who drive, and then those who are utilizing public transit too, which kind of rolls into the next slide with transportation. Okay, so transportation, as Rebecca said, this is uniquely challenging in Mecklenburg County because it is just a rapidly growing community and space. And so we have done a lot of legwork. We've really enhanced our footprint in the transportation domain in the last 5 years. So I will say, just for context, again, we're at an advantage because Mecklenburg County houses its own transportation system. So to our core, if older adults are seeking transportation, we are able to accommodate those needs based on availability and eligibility. But those are individuals 18 and older with disabilities, and then older adults, so traditionally 60 and older, utilizing that transportation. And post-pandemic, we were able to provide quality of life trips. So created a different service stream to assist older adults seeking, engagement in their faith-based communities, in hygiene and personal care. So going to the hair salon, going to the grocery store, and really supporting them in that to avoid and kind of address that social isolation and loneliness piece, because those were provided at no cost and totaled over 115,000 resident trips. So we really made an impact there, partnering with that core service stream. As always, we are always advocating to streamline the assessment process of our public transit partners. So one of our big partners in this space, we work closely with CATS, with Charlotte Area Transit, with their special transportation system, making those referrals, helping the individuals understand what the assessment looks like, and being sure that we're making those connections, whether that be internally or to our external partners. Right here on that third point. So working with CATS again to refine approach to service delivery, partnering with our stakeholders, as we mentioned. So I will touch on in Mecklenburg County, we have not established a volunteer transportation network, but other age-friendly communities have, who may have a stronger volunteer network, maybe operating in a more rural setting. And so I would always highlight those efforts. I think it's an excellent option and approach, just not something that we've implemented here at this time. And then exploring options for expanding free and low door-to-door services. So again, partnering, I do want to highlight, as we mentioned, these are just our recommendations. So we step outside the box. We are constantly evolving with what other ways can we touch transportation. So I will also highlight in our efforts to address these recommendations, we partnered closely with Vision Zero at the City of Charlotte. So many communities have a Vision Zero team or initiative. And we went out into 55 plus communities and had that pedestrian safety education, right? Provided those reflective gear, provided a AI or not AI, but digital simulation. So they put on the goggles and tried to safely cross the street, right, at their own pace with traffic, and found that, right, in theory, I feel confident, I feel comfortable, but is this really feasible? So for many older adults in those communities, they're located in metropolitan Charlotte. And so they are walking or rolling with assistive devices, and they are not driving or using public transit on a routine basis. So we wanted to reach them, right, at that core. Taking it to the next step with driver safety, right, working with AARP for car fit, and working with injury prevention partners to think about driver safety. So having that car fit model from AARP, having the conversation, and enhancing the navigation of rideshare applications, so Lyft and Uber. How can we make older adults feel more comfortable with using those if they feel they're not as confident in driving their own vehicle or navigating public transit? And then, of course, our biggest highlight and something that I love to give kudos to is our enhanced service quality efforts. So we were able to partner with Centralina Area Agency on Aging and our local dementia-friendly Charlotte-Mecklenburg initiative to host a very uniquely combined training and education system. So in spring of 2023, we took our transportation providers here, a team of over 40, and trained them in aging sensitivity and dementia-friendly best practices. And so those staff, whether they be the scheduling team, the call center, dispatch, creating routes, or the drivers themselves, were exposed with Centralina staff and other staff to some best practices, right? Help me to better understand the lived experience of older adults so we can then provide them enhanced service quality in terms of transportation. And again, that ideally is for individuals with a dementia diagnosis or perhaps cognitive, conditions or decline. And so that was an excellent example of age-friendly being a convener in the transportation space. So how do we bring these resources to our providers? How do we make them feel more comfortable and confident in providing service to residents, aging residents with dementia, as I mentioned? So that was an excellent effort, worth noting. And then our transportation providers took it a step further, and they fulfilled the dementia-friendly business certification. So if you are riding or you see a Mecklenburg Transportation System vehicle, they have that decal, and you can be assured that the training or the staff have been trained and are aware of some of those best practices. So if your loved one is utilizing that service, they have taken that step, and they do that on an annual basis to certify and train their staff. So I think that's definitely worth noting and giving kudos to, because that was new and innovative in terms of age-friendly space and building up those efforts. And again, some of the things I mentioned are here on the screen. So in the center, you see that training with staff that we held collaboratively in person. To the left of the screen, this is a promotional communication campaign. So this was on digital billboards and print billboards out off of Highway 74, off of Independence, and then going south. So do you need a ride? Mecklenburg Transportation System, our phone number, and then that dementia-friendly decal that I mentioned. To the far right on the slide, this is where we worked again. So taking it a step further. So I mentioned we had that core service, we enhanced that service quality, and then we promoted that effort. So we had our local WCNC television broadcasting network come out and interview our drivers. So if people are sitting at home, whether a loved one, an adult child of an aging parent, a caregiver, they heard about that. They heard about our collaboration. We want to give the community that impression that this is of the utmost priority and importance. And so that's what we did. We put that out there that this core service is available, and we value these residents and their ability to move throughout the community. And here are these excellent staff and drivers who provide that on a day-to-day. And so I always want to highlight that. And then the last picture at the middle and the bottom, that was our collaborative effort, as I mentioned, for Older Driver Safety Awareness Week, which is every December. So we try and work to connect people with those routine calendar invites, those events, something thematic, something people could buy into. And as you see there, that was with Vision Zero, our transportation core, that rideshare information, and then state level resources. So that was co-facilitated. We hosted those in person. And again, just having that conversation around individuals not feeling as though we're taking away their capacity to drive, but making them feel more empowered and confident. Our overarching goal is always to make individuals feel more empowered to enhance their quality of life as they age. Because as Katie said, we are all aging, right? And so these things apply to all of us, whether directly, through family members, through friends, and so forth. So I always want to highlight those two big primary buckets for this group. Right, but the initiative and the efforts do not stop there. These are just two versions or buckets to highlight for this group in terms of the built environment, our planning efforts, and communication and so forth. Okay, so here we are with Engage With Us. So a big piece, as I mentioned, is that advocacy and engagement. And so we have various platforms. Many overlap with AARP and our partners with Rebecca, but we maintain a web page. So if you're interested in learning more about the things that we've touched on today, or the unique initiatives beyond this scope, that is an excellent place to start. We do have a phone number, so we want to be sure that individuals are able to connect with us if they're not on digital platforms. We understand many caregivers and older adults may not be, whether that's because of access to internet, they're not on devices, they don't feel comfortable or confident, so on. So we do have a phone number, which I recommend for any community seeking designation who's trying to reach our older adults. And then we maintain our email. So anyone is able to reach out, providers, residents, other counties, other municipalities. If you want to connect, the more the merrier. We're happy to share our best practices, some of our lessons learned on those channels. And then to connect with the community, we really grew this initiative and idea with the Age Friendly Mecklenburg newsletter. So that newsletter comes out on the first Friday of every month. And that highlights everything that the network and the partners have to offer. So we do that again in collaboration with our Dementia Friendly Charlotte-Mecklenburg initiative. And we work closely to highlight the wide variety of resources, efforts, events, programs. Again, anyone can subscribe to that. That is where your QR will take you. And so again, this is really just a very high level overview of those initiatives. We do many more, including scam and fraud prevention. We have an annual scam jam. We focus on World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. We have Older Americans Month, as many do, with social engagement and connection. So the initiatives are very broad, but I think any community interested in taking that first step is to just really reflect and start to bring your partnerships together. And then you can build out your engagement strategies, your tools, many of which are from AARP, are provided with AARP. They make it very easy and doable, and they're very supportive infrastructure to this work. So I'll pause there. A lot of information from Rebecca and I, so I will pass it back over to include Rebecca and the other host. And again, her slide here is to stay in touch with AARP. Very similar, you could reach out to one of us, both of us. We work very closely hand in hand, so we're happy to refer and collaborate as needed, but additional information there.
Excellent. Awesome. So thank you, Rebecca and Christine. And so I know a question had come in the chat box asking about if these slides will be available. And so we will make them available. So there's so many great resources, so many great links, along with the contact information here. I think what we're going to do at this point, and we will be sharing some additional information related to Centralina Regional Council and the Area Agency on Aging and how we can also support communities that might be interested in efforts to become more age-friendly. But since we've heard a lot of information, which is really exciting, regarding some of the resources through AARP, also regarding your work in Mecklenburg County, we want to take some time to pause for some questions and answers. So we'll give everyone some time. We know the best way to submit those questions is through the chat box. So we'll pause here, give the opportunity for any questions to come in. But while y'all are thinking, those of you in the Zoom room and typing in those questions, if we could kick things off. And Rebecca, so for any community or municipality that's out there that's interested in getting started or maybe doing more of age-friendly community planning and connecting with AARP's process, what's your recommendation in terms of how to get started?
Thank you. And I'm actually going to answer two questions at once because I saw a couple questions in the chat box as well that I figured I'd answer live. First of all, if you have any questions about joining one of the age-friendly community group, contact me. As you saw in the last slide, Christine shared my contact information. And I saw that a couple folks said that they were in Union County. And as I mentioned really quickly when I showed that map of where me and my colleagues represent, I represent 13 counties, including Union County. And we are looking for Union County to join the age-friendly network. So if you're in Union County, or whether you're part of the county itself or in one of the towns or cities, and you're interested in learning more about the age-friendly network, or if you're in any one of the 13 counties that I represent or anywhere across the state, feel free to contact me and I can give you some more information. There are, as I said, there are infographics I can share. There are lots of documents that share more information about what being an age-friendly community includes. And it's a really great and welcoming space too. where there's a lot of idea sharing. And one of my favorite parts that I said earlier is just all the different community partners coming together, because everyone can relate to and have something to say about making a community age-friendly. Everyone has a perspective, a story, something to add. So it's a great way to bring your city, town, or municipality together towards a really positive common goal. So reach out to me, and if I can't help or if I don't represent your community, if you're in another part of the state or another part of the U.S. That I don't represent, I can absolutely help connect you with the right person and find the information you need to get started.
Excellent. Thank you, Rebecca. And then kind of to turn back to you, Christine, having been doing the work there at the local level in Mecklenburg County, as you're thinking of the age-friendly initiative, what would you say are some of the greatest challenges in the work? And then any kind of feedback as to any of the successes that you want to highlight. I know you've highlighted quite a few, particularly related to transportation and outdoor spaces, but anything else you kind of want to lift up that has worked well in Mecklenburg County?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the biggest challenge can be where to start, right? And so Rebecca has shared many resources, and it can feel like a large, intensive process, right? If we've touched on, excuse me, that it's gradual change. But it's very doable. The AARP is there to support you. And as many of you know, if you're working in the space, older adults are our fastest growing population. So it's an easy sell, right? Older adults are going to be everyone's clientele. They're everyone's family, everyone's friends. And so how do we support them? Whether that's in the built environment, transportation, excuse me, but across those domains. So I think it can be challenging to kind of get started, but as Rebecca said, reach out to her, be willing to lean into your community partners. I think that is the biggest strength to this initiative here in Mecklenburg, is that the community partners are invested and engaged. So from our start in 2016, we see the same individuals or their counterparts or their successors stepping into the space. So making sure to engage them along the lines of, their time is valuable, but we all have the same shared goal, right? And if we can all get behind that, it is time well spent. And so we are very fortunate to have those community partnerships that continue engagement to create and facilitate those initiatives, right? And so bringing them on board, helping to have those mutually beneficial goals. So we're in an advantageous place where we're creating the next action plan. We've reached that first full phase and cycle. And I can say it continually evolves, and it really is easy to continue that maintenance and that facilitation. So please feel free, as Rebecca said, to reach out to her or myself or Centralina. They are also very familiar, well aware, and equipped to assist. So it's been an absolute journey, and it's been a privilege to work with everyone on the call, the other panelists as well, to facilitate that as community partners too.
Awesome. Thank you. I think I see a question that came in, and I think it's kind of asking in terms of starting that process with the age-friendly program process. Is there a particular organization that has to initiate that process? So I guess this is a question for AARP. So does it have to originate with the county or the city or a municipality? Are there any other organizations that can initiate that process? I think that might be a way to summarize the question that came in. Any thoughts on that, Rebecca? Does it need to originate from a local government?
No, not necessarily. I mean, in general, the different, so it's a little, so it doesn't have to originate from local government, but all of the different communities have to be either like a city or a town or a county. One thing we can do is that we can kind of work with you guys, and we can kind of, I'm trying to think carefully because technically it has to be like a city, town, or a county, but like we can work with you guys to kind of get over any of the hurdles If it's something that, you know, like our general counsel or something needs to help with in order to, you know, kind of figure out any kinds of language, we can help you guys do that. We have people who have much more of a skill set on that than I do, who can help you and can help walk through the process. But as far as I know, they need to be like kind of an official city, town, or a municipality. But with that said, is like we were kind of reiterating before, is that having all different community partners, whether they be from the nonprofit side or the government side, all really inform the age-friendly community. So they're all part of the community, and one can't really act independently per se, but I think having the buy-in from all different aspects of the community is really helpful in making the decision. But with that said, all of our staff within the livability office, within, you know, our legal team, we can help you kind of get over any hurdles and get the buy-in from the necessary.
Thank you. That's helpful. And so then, and Caitlin, you can interrupt me too if questions are coming in that I'm missing. What about any thoughts from you, Rebecca, given that there's been, you know, so much engagement across the nation with communities getting involved in the age-friendly program process? We heard an example from Mecklenburg County where there was a designated staff member. Any insights as to other models, and not that you have to go into incredible detail, but knowing that that's one model, but any kind of insight as to what some of the other models look like in terms
Yeah.
of are they community led, but then local government supported? Are they actually initiated, and kind of is the local government carrying the torch, if you will, with all of the planning process, or is it a
Yeah.
combination?
Usually, honestly, it's a combination. So I'm thinking of some other towns and counties in the state. Guilford County is one that's super active. I know that they have local government staff. Christine, I don't know if you've talked to them before, but I know that they have local government staff, but they also have a lot of volunteers who help. And I don't know if they're an official board or just older adult volunteers who are in the community. I don't know what their official titles are, but some communities that are a little bit smaller who don't have official staff do rely heavily on volunteers. But what's great about having volunteers who are helping with the age-friendly process is they really are boots on the ground. If they're, you know, they're older adults and they know what older adults need in their individual communities. They know what walkways are uneven. They know what crosswalk light doesn't work. And so by having all of that information from the source, it really helps to inform the program. So that's why a lot of communities rely on the older adult volunteers in their area.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's helpful to see, Christine had mentioned it, right, that there can be different models, right, that work for different communities. And we know, particularly in times where, you know, budgets are tight and staffing it may be short, all right, thinking of really part of the intention of the age-friendly planning is bringing together different organizations that may have similar missions, and to make sure that there's not a duplication of efforts, but that we're really kind of seeing that synergy so that you can have the biggest impact, right? So, you know, the biggest impact for the effort with the resources that are available. And so I think that that can be a helpful perspective. And I love that you mentioned that opportunity to really engage and involve older adults and volunteers to help the process continue to grow as well.
Absolutely. And I have to say that Mecklenburg is kind of like a shining star in the age-friendly program because they're kind of an anomaly with having a dedicated full-time staff. That's not the norm. Like there are a lot of towns that have staff who may not be super educated initially about the age-friendly process and what it entails, so they kind of learn on the job. So I think Mecklenburg is very unique and really special to be able to have dedicated staff to really grow and foster the age-friendly community.
All right. And Caitlin, any other questions before we move on to talk a little bit about Centralina?
I did see one, and this looks like it'll probably be for you, Christine. It says, if you operate a program that serves members of Mecklenburg County, can you initiate a transportation or age-friendly initiative? So it's to support members being able to attend and participate in the program.
So the way I'm interpreting this is if you're an organization or entity in Mecklenburg County, if you're seeking to engage and collaborate with us, part of that is being mutually beneficial. So us promoting your resources and program, whatever that may be, whether that's transportation focused or engagement focused, communication focused. So it would stay at the county level, right? This designation, but the unique initiatives and how we collaborate is based on each organization's needs, what they're looking for. So I'm happy if you're willing to reach out and you have something in mind. Like I said, we're constantly evolving, listening to what certain parts of the community need, because we know the north side of town looks very different than the south side of town, east and west, and also metropolitan Charlotte. So we try and cater those initiatives to be truly unique. And if we can find a community partner to collaborate with, that's the most ideal structure, right? Where you guys have some participants or residents interested and able to participate. So please feel welcome to reach out to myself, whether it's email or phone, so we could talk a little more about what that might look like.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, so we'll kind of keep going a little bit here to talk a little bit about the Centralina Regional Council and how our organization may be able to assist your community in terms of doing additional age-friendly community planning. And so many of you who are here in the Zoom room are familiar with the Centralina Regional Council. And so for those who may not be, just putting up on the screen here a little bit about our organization. Shows our mission along with our service area. So you'll see that we cover a 9-county region. And so really, the Area Agency on Aging is just one department here at the Centralina Regional Council. And the Area Agency on Aging, along with our planning department, are really, I think, uniquely positioned to help assist any local governments, any communities who really want to embrace age-friendly community planning. And we'll talk a little bit more about how we may be able to help with any of those efforts at the local level. But just wanted to mention a little bit about the Area Agency on Aging, those who may not be familiar. We have a variety of different roles in the community, and one is that we administer federal and state funds to local aging service providers. So we are there to help support the Aging Services Network. So thinking of different services like senior centers, transportation programs, nutrition programs, in-home aid programs, adult daycare programs across the region. We're there to help, again, administer and support the use of those federal and state funds. We also have some direct services as well. So one of our direct services is the long-term care ombudsman program. So those are advocates for residents in long-term care. So that would be nursing home and assisted living homes. We also house the family caregiver support program. We also do a lot of information and referral, and Christine talked about how important it is for people to be able to access information about what services are available. So that's part of the role that we have at the Area Agency on Aging as well, to help connect older adults and caregivers to resources that exist in the community. And in addition to that, we do a lot of community education. And so that can be to the general public. That's also to, of course, aging service providers as well. So in a nutshell, when you think of the Centralina Area Agency on Aging, we're here to support older adults and the people who care for them. So that could be those informal caregivers, family caregivers, but we're also here to support other aging service providers. So that's part of our role. So hopefully that helps you get a little understanding about our role. And so then when you think about pursuing and moving forward with age-friendly community planning, or maybe even building upon what you're already doing at the local level, there's a variety of different ways that the Centralina Regional Council could assist. So for example, one of the things we heard about AARP's process, it does include that community needs assessment. And so again, that's something that between our planning department and our Area Agency on Aging, we could certainly help and assist with that process. Our planning department also is just very well known for their community engagement. And so, of course, you think of determining community needs through, of course, it could be research, could be through surveys, could be through a variety of community engagement opportunities. I'm thinking of open houses, focus groups, things like that. And so actually, I think pictured here on this slide is from some work that we did with Stanley County a few years ago regarding planning for the future, because they knew they wanted to expand their senior services and potentially build another senior center. And we're looking for some community input as to where should that be, right? Where's the greatest need? And so that's a photo taken from an open house from that process. I mentioned education. So we can provide education regarding aging and disability sensitivity. And that's actually the training that Christine mentioned. And there was a picture on a prior slide, and you could see some different glasses and gloves that actually represents different vision impairments that individuals may experience as they age. The gloves represent arthritis. It's a really interactive training that's really meant to raise awareness about some of the challenges that may face older adults, as well as to communicate best practices for serving older adults. We can provide training regarding the Americans with Disabilities Act. We have an ageism awareness training. And another one of those education opportunities is Dementia Friends. And that was mentioned also in terms of the partnership with Mecklenburg's transportation program. So that's a great way to raise awareness about what is dementia, and also how can we create a more dementia-friendly community to support people living with dementia and their caregivers. We have regular training opportunities. So of course, y'all are joining us virtually today, and we appreciate you doing so. But just to note, so this is of course Centralina Learns through the Centralina Regional Council. The Area Agency on Aging, our department offers webinars on a monthly basis, and that's going to be any and all topics related to aging. And they're archived on our website, recorded and archived on our website. And as you take a look at some of the past trainings, you can also take a look at upcoming trainings. We're going to touch on those in a minute here. You'll see that they are touching on all 8 domains of livability, right? So this is a great way for you and your team members to stay informed about aging issues and considerations. We're also really excited. We have an upcoming conference in person happening in March, and so we'll provide that information as well. Now, in partnership with our planning department, we can also assist with walk audits or even safety assessments around mobility options. So this could really be exploring access to and from and at existing bus stops or transit stops. And so that's so important because we know transportation is such an important issue. It's a lifeline that connects people to the services and supports that they need in the community. Our planning department can also help with aging in place friendly zoning or related code amendments. So as you think of things like accessory dwelling units, which might be helpful for households when they may want to move a loved one on the same campus, right, to be able to provide care and support, but have that accessory dwelling unit to also maintain a little privacy as well. What coding is in place? Would it or would it not allow that? Are there any amendments that would need to be made? Also thinking of things like universal design. So again, how can we make all of these spaces as accessible as possible? Other considerations could be assistance with land use plans that consider lifelong community attributes and recommendations. And so again, something that our planning department also can assist with. Holding placemaking seminars. So we talked about that importance of community engagement. You know, how do we create spaces that people want to be in? How do you create spaces that people love, right? Because we want them to love their communities, stay involved in their communities, stay active, and whenever possible to age in place. And lastly, considerations around equity and environmental justice. And so that could be training opportunities or advisement as well. And so just another example might be communities trying to identify, for example, are there any food deserts? Are there ways to reduce those food deserts so that you could reduce food insecurity and increase access to healthy foods, for example? And I think pictured here is just from a walk audit that believe that was in Mooresville. And so again, looking at accessibility to and from those bus stops. So these are just a few ways that the Centralina Regional Council, again, the partnership between our planning department and our area agency on aging, may be able to assist local communities. So I've got my contact information here. If you're interested or have questions about how we could assist you, or again, kind of build upon the efforts that you already have in your community, please don't hesitate to reach out. So we would love to assist you with those efforts. Now, we know when we saw the registration list, we do have a few people joining us who are from outside the region. So just wanted to mention that there are regional councils that cover all 100 counties in North Carolina. And in North Carolina, all regional councils house an area agency on aging. So what you'll see here is kind of that map with the different territories. And then there's also a link so that you can find the contact information for your local council of governments, and you can also find the contact information for your local area agency on aging. So you'll have that as a reference. And then as we're getting close to running out of time, right? So I wanted to highlight a few opportunities that are upcoming for continuing education. So we had mentioned the Area Agency on Aging webinar series. Just around the corner later this month, we have a webinar on federal and state policy updates regarding aging issues. And so there's, of course, a change in administration. It's a great opportunity to hear what's happening in Washington, also to hear updates at the state level. So that's going to be January 29th. Then in February, so here we have a transportation related webinar. This is about planning for the road ahead, and it's really about older driver safety and community mobility options. So, and these webinars are free, so offered at no cost. So again, it might be something you're interested in, maybe something that others on your team would be interested in. The Centralina Regional Council continues to offer Centralina Learns, and that's really, a variety of topics related to things that may be of interest to your municipalities. So in January, childcare solutions for employers, and we know that that can be a big challenge in terms of getting employees access to work because they're managing childcare, right? So what are the options for employers to make things more doable for their employees? It's a win-win, right? Also having more presenteeism at work and all of those considerations. That's January 22nd. And then in February, this is related to bolstering community resilience and public assets from hazards. So that's February 26th. So again, topics that might be of interest. We'll put in the chat box the link with how to register for these upcoming Centralina Learns. And it also has an additional description and more information about those learning opportunities. And I promise, and I'll wrap it up after this, but just want to highlight we're very excited to be bringing back our in-person aging conference. It's going to be taking place on March 28th in Charlotte at the Harris Conference Center. And we have a keynote speaker. His name is Brad Allen, and Brad Allen is over Senior Games for North Carolina, which if you're not familiar with Senior Games, it's a great opportunity for older adults to stay active and stay engaged in their community. Think of the Olympics for older adults. That is a way to think of Senior Games. But a fun fact about Brad Allen is he is also a professional referee for the NFL. And so that's where we got the football theme from. But so he'll be serving as our keynote speaker. And then in addition to that, we have a variety of breakout sessions. Again, many of which are related to the 8 domains of livability. So a great opportunity for continued education. All right. And that being said, thank you all so much for joining us today. We want to take some time to thank Rebecca and Christine for sharing their expertise. Again, for those of you who are joining us in interest of getting those AICP credits, here you will find that ID number that you need to note for your records. And so we have this available for you. We also will be sending out some follow information. The follow-up information will include the PowerPoint slides from today, as well as a survey to get your feedback on today's training and to get your thoughts on any topics of interest that you would like to see training on in the future. And y'all, that's a wrap. So thank you everybody for joining us today. We really appreciate everybody's time and interest and your questions. Again, you've got the contact information. So many of you are already doing such wonderful work in terms of making your communities age friendly, but we know there's many opportunities for us to continue to build upon that. So we hope today's session was helpful for you all. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. And thank you all for being with us today. Thanks, everybody.